Have you ever found yourself in a situation where, no matter how clearly you speak or how thoroughly you explain yourself, the other person just doesn't get it? Or worse, they deliberately choose not to. They twist your words, misrepresent your intentions, and make you feel like you're at fault just for being true to yourself. If you're replaying conversations in your head, wondering, did I say something wrong? Or why won't they understand? You might be trapped in a toxic cycle, the cycle of constantly explaining yourself to people who don't deserve it. Here's a hard truth to swallow. Toxic people aren't seeking the truth. They're seeking control. When you start explaining yourself, you're not just sharing information, you're handing over power. They don't want to understand you. They want to defeat you. They don't listen to empathize, they listen to argue. In their world, your clarity is an opportunity for manipulation, and your transparency becomes a weapon against you. So why are you still trying? Why do you keep opening up, staying patient, and chasing agreement from people who have no intention of understanding you? Because deep down, you still believe that if you say enough or explain enough, they'll change. But they won't. They'll only become more cunning, colder, and make you doubt your own worth. It's time to wake up from that illusion. This video is your wake-up call. We're going to unpack 9 reasons why stopping the need to explain yourself to toxic people isn't just a strategy. It's the deepest act of self-love. You'll learn how to hold on to your peace, become unmanipulable, and step out of endless emotional spirals. If you're seeking true liberation, pay close attention to every part of this video, because only when you stop trying to be understood can you truly begin to understand yourself. Before we dive into the first section, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment if you've ever felt drained from being misunderstood, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more healing and empowering content like this. Let's get started. Number 1, not everyone deserves your words. Here's a harsh truth you need to accept to live a more peaceful life. Not everyone deserves your words. Not everyone deserves your explanations, your effort, or the heartfelt sincerity you pour into every sentence. Some people approach you not to understand you, but to manipulate you. They don't listen with their hearts. They listen with an agenda to control. And the worst part? Every time you try to explain yourself to someone who doesn't want to understand, you're draining your own energy. Why do you need to understand this? Because you grew up in a world where being understood equates to being valued. We're taught that if someone understands and accepts us, we truly exist. So we learn to please others, to clarify ourselves, to hold back and explain, only to fall into the trap of unhealthy relationships. Because with toxic people, the more you explain, the more ammunition they have to pull your strings like a puppet. The issue isn't what you say, it's who you're saying it to. Not everyone is mature enough to receive the truth. Not everyone has the open-mindedness to listen without judgment. And most importantly, not everyone intends to respect your boundaries. If you're pouring energy into conversations that go nowhere, if you're repeating basic points only to face mockery, dismissal, or distortion, you're not having a conversation. You're being tested. Words are energy. Every word you speak carries your emotions, experiences, and presence. When you speak to the right person, a single sentence can touch their heart. But with the wrong person, 1,000 words are meaningless. That's why you need to choose the audience for your life carefully. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to watch your soul perform. Some people belong in the back row. Some should be ushered out of the auditorium entirely. The real pain doesn't come from them not understanding you. It comes from the hope you placed in them to understand. You believed that if you spoke sincerely enough, if you opened up in the right way, they'd truly see you. But they don't see you because they never looked. They only see through the lens of their own selfishness, unhealed wounds, or plain malice. Here's what you need to remember. You can't convince someone to understand something they've already decided not to. So what should you do? Start by embracing silence as a complete response. When someone deliberately misunderstands you, stop. When someone pushes you to justify things you didn't do, stop. When someone asks questions designed to trap you emotionally, stop. Not with anger, not with attitude, but with intentional withdrawal and absolute self-respect. You're not silent because you're weak. You're silent because you know your words are a treasure, and you're done investing them in places that yield no return. In the emotional world, awakening isn't about speaking more. It's about knowing when to speak and when to hold back. True freedom doesn't come from saying everything to everyone. Freedom is when you no longer feel the need to say anything at all. You have the right to walk away from a conversation that's going nowhere. You have the right to choose peace over being right. And you have the right to protect your mind from those who seek to disrupt your calm with twisted logic and psychological games. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you live, who you love, what you believe, the boundaries you set, or why you walk away. Maturity is sometimes a series of moments where you choose not to respond, not to explain, not to justify. Not because you lack words, but because you no longer need validation from others to feel your worth. And here's the thing, the fewer words you use, the more weight your words carry. A wise person isn't someone who speaks a lot, but someone who speaks at the right time, in the right place, to the right person. Guard your words like gold, and don't let others squander them like cheap change. You deserve conversations that are equal, healthy, and rooted in a heart that truly wants to understand you, not one that only wants to control you. If you've ever been manipulated because you tried to explain yourself, share your story in the comments below. It could not only free you, but also help others feel less alone. And if this resonates with you, hit the like button to help YouTube recommend it to others stuck in similar relationships. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to continue this journey of healing and inner strength. Number 2, why explaining is a trap. Explaining feels like an act of goodwill. You want others to understand because you believe understanding will bring peace. You explain to clarify, to untangle, to preserve relationships, to avoid misunderstandings. But here's something few realize. With toxic people, explaining isn't a bridge to connection. It's a carefully laid trap to make you feel guilty, powerless, and even doubt yourself. Explaining to someone who doesn't listen isn't communication. It's surrender. Imagine standing before someone who's already decided you're wrong. No matter what you say, their mind is locked shut. With every word you speak, they're not listening to understand, but to argue, to twist, to use against you later. Here's what you need to grasp deeply. Explaining too much is what people do when they're losing power in a conversation. And with toxic people, what they want isn't the truth. It's control over you through your insecurities. They ask questions not to gain insight, but to lead you to a place where you feel like the problem. They pretend not to understand, act confused, or interrupt with over-the-top emotional reactions like anger, tears, or contempt. Not because they're genuinely hurt, but because they know it'll make you try harder to explain. And the more you say, the more you lose yourself. This is their game, making you doubt your emotions, motives, and memories by forcing you to justify endlessly. That's manipulation. A truly mature person, when they don't understand, asks with genuine curiosity and listens with respect. But a toxic person asks questions like, "Why are you like that? Why are you so selfish? I don't think you have a good reason for that." Not to understand, but to ignite a chain of defenses they'll twist into evidence against you. Explaining in an emotionally unsafe space is like drawing a treasure map for a thief. You give them access to your vulnerabilities, pain, and unhealed wounds. And the cruel truth is, they'll use it against you, not once, but repeatedly, like a knife cutting deeper each day. Sometimes you don't see the trap because it's disguised as morality. You think you're being kind, mature, or humble by engaging in dialogue, but in reality, you're not communicating. You're defending yourself against someone with no intention of reconciling. The more you explain, the more you show that your emotions and decisions depend on their approval. You hand them the power to define you, and that's when you're caught in a cycle of confusion, pain, and self-doubt. The most dangerous trap of explaining to toxic people is that you start adjusting yourself to fit their mold. To avoid being misunderstood, you say less. To avoid attack, you censor yourself. To not be called cold or selfish, you suppress your emotions and play the good person. Gradually, you stop being yourself. You become a version they can control. That's not growth, It's self-harm to please others. The solution isn't to speak more or speak better. It's to realize you don't need to explain everything, especially to those who don't respect you enough to listen. Start by asking, does this person really want to understand me, or are they just waiting to argue? Do they create a safe space for me to share, or am I always worried about the fallout? If the answer leans toward the latter, know this: silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You have the right to say, I don't feel the need to explain that. You have the right to say, this is my boundary. You have the right to walk away from a conversation where you're being judged instead of connected with. Remember, kind people don't force you to justify your existence, boundaries, or emotions. Toxic people only stop when they see you're no longer prey, swayed by guilt or the need to be understood. The less you explain, the more you're respected. Because people can't do much with silence. They can't twist what you don't say. They can't use what you hold back against you. Silence at the right moment is a shield, a declaration that you know who you are and don't need anyone's permission to be yourself. If you've ever fallen into the trap of explaining to someone who didn't want to understand, leave a comment below. Sharing can help you release and let others know they're not alone in their journey to break free. If this content makes you feel stronger, hit the like button to spread it to others caught in similar emotional webs. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to continue exploring videos on psychology, personal strength, and emotional healing. Number 3, you owe no one closure. There's a mistaken belief ingrained in us from a young age that every relationship, good or bad, needs to be closed with a polite conversation, a final explanation, or a clear ending, so everyone understands why and can move on. But the truth isn't so gentle. The reality is that not everyone deserves closure from you, and you're not obligated to provide it to anyone. You don't owe a final conversation to someone who's hurt you, disregarded your boundaries, or made you feel diminished in your own life. Closure is a healing concept when it happens between two mature people who both want to understand and reflect to move forward. But in the hands of a toxic person, it becomes an emotional trap. They don't want closure. They want one last chance to manipulate you, justify their behavior, or worse, make you feel guilty for daring to walk away without explaining. In their world, you owe them your endurance, and if you refuse, they'll call you cold, heartless, or even a betrayer. The truth is, sometimes closure doesn't come from a conversation, but from choosing silence and walking away. It's when you realize you don't need their validation to leave. You don't need their agreement to feel at peace. You don't need them to understand your pain or empathize with your perspective to heal. True closure doesn't come from outside. It comes from within, from the moment you accept that you'll never get what you hope for. And that's okay. When you seek closure from someone who doesn't respect you, you're opening your heart's door again for them to walk through. This time under the guise of tying up loose ends. But the cost might be days of lingering thoughts about what they said, how they twisted the truth, or the psychological jabs they used to make you question your decision. They might say you're too sensitive, that things weren't that bad, or that they're hurt too. Before you know it, you're explaining again, soothing them, being mature by forgiving on their terms. Closure isn't a moral duty, it's a choice. You don't have to sit down and help someone who disrespected you understand how you felt. If they truly cared, they wouldn't have treated you the way they did. Understanding doesn't come from long conversations, but from changed behavior. And if you've waited for change and seen none, walking away silently is the most complete closure there is. It's hard to let go of the idea that we need to talk it out so no one has regrets later. But that's a story for two equals in mindset. If you've been insulted, manipulated, or emotionally neglected, talking it out only burdens you with their emotions while you're trying to free yourself. Sometimes closure doesn't need words, just stopping, not responding, not texting, not engaging in any more talks about the past. That's not immaturity, it's self-protection from those who don't deserve you. Don't feel guilty for not providing a gentle curtain call for someone who caused chaos in your life. You don't owe them anything just because they were once part of your story perpetually. You don't have to keep explaining yourself to someone who doesn't value your truth. Their loss of you due to their disrespect is message enough. And if they don't get it, no conversation will change that. The beauty is this: when you stop chasing civilized closure for a wound, you reclaim your inner power. You don't have to guide the emotions of those who hurt you. You don't need to dig up the past to please them. You just stand firm in your silence and move forward. True healing doesn't come from others understanding you, but from choosing not to let their understanding define your worth. If you've ever felt torn for not getting proper closure, know you're not alone. Millions carry scars from trying to explain in desperation or end things kindly with someone who doesn't grasp kindness. Share your story in the comments below. We read everyone, and this community welcomes your truth. If this video is helping you feel clearer and stronger, hit like to share its value with others who need to hear it. Subscribe to stay on this journey of reclaiming personal power, setting boundaries, and breaking free from toxic relationships. Number 4, the power of mystery. In a world obsessed with oversharing, where every emotion is posted online and every word and action is dissected under scrutiny, mystery becomes an unmanipulable form of power. Choosing to keep something to yourself, not out of fear or insecurity, but because you know not everyone deserves access to your inner world, is a subtle yet profound form of control. Toxic people hate mystery. They thrive on reading you, predicting your reactions, and exploiting your weaknesses. When they can't read you anymore, they lose their bearings. Your silence isn't just a lack of response. It's an invisible wall they can't breach. In your inner world, you control the gates. By keeping them closed, you take away their most vital tool, the ability to manipulate you. Mystery makes you unpredictable, which unsettles toxic people. They're no longer sure if their old tactics work. They'll try baiting you with provocations, subtle jabs, or using others to spark a reaction. But your silence, a deliberate choice, not coldness, is the clearest declaration of power. You don't need to shout, "I've changed," or "I'm not weak anymore." Simply not reacting, not explaining, not giving them what they want is enough. Mystery also protects your mental energy. Every time you explain or analyze for a toxic person, you drain a piece of your strength. By holding back, you preserve your freedom. You're not bound to clear things up. You don't need to prove anything to be at peace. And the truth is, kind people don't demand you bare your soul. Manipulators, however, are unsettled when they can't control your thoughts and emotions. When you embrace mystery, you enter a space of discernment. You ask yourself, does this need to be said? Does this person deserve this story? Do these emotions need to be expressed? Or can they be observed in silence? You stop acting on emotional impulses and start shaping your emotional space. In that state, you're not controlled. You're in control. There's a clear difference between mystery and secrecy. Mystery is intentional, a choice rooted in inner strength. Secrecy comes from fear. When you choose not to share, it's not because you're afraid of being exposed. It's because you know privacy is a privilege reserved for those who've earned your trust. When toxic people aren't in that circle, they lose access to you. They're left guessing, and in that ambiguity, you hold the upper hand. Wise people know when to speak and when to stay silent. Sometimes silence is the most complete response. They may interpret your silence as weakness, defeat, or lingering hurt, but you don't need to prove otherwise. By not playing their game, you show you're on a different level, one with no room for childish emotional ploys. Remember, what others don't know about you makes them cautious. That caution creates an invisible but powerful boundary. It makes them think twice before overstepping. They're left guessing, no longer in control. Meanwhile, you move forward, steady, without needing to explain or validate. You're free in your mental space, something they can never take from you. Mystery also makes you more appealing to healthy people. They don't see you as cold or distant. They sense your strength and maturity in holding something back. You attract those on your wavelength who understand that not everything needs to be known to be valued, that control isn't needed for security, and that explanations aren't required for respect. They'll enter your life with unconditional respect, something you fully deserve. If you're rebuilding after a toxic relationship, try practicing mystery consciously. Hold back an emotion, a thought, a reaction. Let silence guide you instead of words. Learn to live without needing others to understand, and you'll start understanding yourself more. The truth is, when you live without the need to perform or explain, you're living in freedom, and in that freedom, you grow. If this resonates, share your experience with silence and mystery in the comments below. Have you been hurt by sharing too much too soon? What lessons did you learn from opening up at the wrong time? Your story could light the way for someone lost. If you're on this journey of inner growth, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. There's more wisdom to uncover. And don't forget to like if you see mystery as a powerful weapon you never considered before. Number 5. Silence is authority. We grow up in a world where words are seen as proof of intelligence and action as a sign of strength. But there's a higher, quieter form of power. Silence. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a deliberate choice. In situations with toxic people, where words are twisted and reactions exploited, silence is the ultimate symbol of authority. It's the language of someone who no longer needs to argue to prove anything, who stepped into a realm where their silence commands respect. Toxic people always try to push you into a defensive state. They provoke, attack, and say hurtful things just to see you react. They don't want to understand you. They want to test if you're still controllable. Every time you get angry, lash out, or try to justify yourself, you hand them an invisible power, the power to unsettle you. But when you choose silence, you take it all back. Silence isn't weakness. It takes immense strength to resist provocation. Deep down, you know the truth doesn't need to be shouted. It stands firm in your core. Something fascinating happens when you're silent. The other person gets uneasy. They can't read your thoughts or predict your intentions, and that strips away their control. Meanwhile, you stand calm and unshaken, not reacting as they expect. Your silence becomes a strategy, a symbol of self-mastery. It says, I don't need to respond to prove I'm right. I don't need to convince anyone to feel secure. I'm whole within myself. That unspoken message resonates louder than any words. In manipulative conversations, silence breaks the cycle of control. Toxic people use words to shift blame, making you apologize for things you didn't do. If you keep responding, you're playing on their stage. But if you stop, stay silent, and don't react, you step out of their carefully set game. You're no longer a pawn, you're in charge. Silence also preserves your mental energy. Not every situation deserves your effort to explain. Not everyone has the emotional maturity to understand you. And you don't need to lower yourself to please those with no good intentions. Instead of wasting words on the unwilling, use silence to nurture your inner space. In that space, you can breathe, listen to yourself, and calm your inner waves without reacting to external triggers. Picture this. You're facing someone who's blaming you, stirring drama, expecting a response. Instead of replying, you look at them calmly, silently. No nod, no shake, no expression. That look says, I'm unshaken. And you know what happens? They're thrown off. They don't know how to attack next. You don't have to do anything, just not engage. In that disengagement, you're on a higher plane. To be clear, silence isn't avoidance. It's not denying emotions or sidestepping issues. It's a conscious choice to manage your mental energy. It's reminding yourself, not every battle deserves my effort. Not every question needs an answer. Not every provocation warrants a response. In that state, you're in control of your life, not through words, but through awareness. Those deeply hurt by toxic people often fall into a trap, thinking they must explain to restore fairness or make them understand their pain. But it's a futile loop. Toxic people don't care about fairness. They care about controlling you. When you choose silence, you disconnect from their system of manipulation. You don't need them to understand you because you understand yourself. That's the ultimate freedom. Here's something to remember. Silence can be a complete response. It can end a pointless conversation. It can set a boundary for what you won't allow to go further. Sometimes it's stronger than any bold statement. In that silence lies a subtle message the wise will read. I'm not here to play by the old rules. I've moved to a new phase of my life where peace matters more than being heard. If you're learning to use silence as a life strategy, be patient. It's hard at first because your reflex is to explain, defend, or fight back. But over time, you'll see silence isn't just a way to avoid chaos. It's a path to deep peace. From that place, you not only escape toxic people, but also the need to prove anything to anyone. If this sparks something in you, share a time you chose silence over arguing in the comments. What was the outcome? Hit like if you see silence as a new strength you're cultivating. Subscribe to catch more insights on reclaiming inner power, self-respect, and breaking free from toxic emotional traps. We're on this awakening journey together, step by step. Number 6, explaining yourself is seeking approval disguised. Here's a truth few dare to admit. Many times you explain yourself not to clarify but to be accepted. You speak not because they deserve an answer, but because you're seeking something deeper: validation, approval, legitimacy. It's a subtle defense mechanism so ingrained you don't realize you're pleading for the right to exist as you are. You say you're just clarifying, but you're really trying to prove, I'm not wrong, I'm a good person, I have valid reasons for feeling this way. And when you're explaining to a toxic person, it becomes a cruel game. One where you always lose, always feel drained, and never feel good enough. Explaining is normal in healthy communication. In a respectful, loving relationship, you explain to build understanding, connection, or heal misunderstandings. But with toxic people, explaining doesn't lead to understanding. It gives them material to manipulate you. They twist your words into weapons, distort your motives, and make you doubt your feelings. And then you feel the need to explain again, and again, and again, until you're exhausted and still unseen. The trap is thinking explaining will set you free, but the more you explain, the more trapped you become. Every time you justify, you hand over the keys to your mind, implicitly saying, please accept me, please believe me, please validate me. Toxic people know this. They know the more you need to be understood, the easier you are to control. They keep you feeling unclear, tying you to the relationship invisibly. That's why you feel drained after talking to them. It's not a conversation. It's a sophisticated control tactic disguised as explaining. Have you noticed that people who truly love and trust you rarely demand explanations? They feel your energy, sense your sincerity through your actions and presence. They don't need emotional diagrams or essays on why you reacted the way you did. They listen because they care, not to find flaws. Toxic people, however, make every word feel like a trial, where you're the defendant and they're the judge. It's an emotionally toxic environment where you're always trying to score points to be accepted, and one misstep can erase everything. Over-explaining stems from a deep fear, being misunderstood, abandoned, or labeled as bad. But you can't control how others see you, especially those with no goodwill. Explaining won't change their biases, particularly if they have decided not to understand you. In those moments, your words are just echoes in a locked room. The only thing you can do is hold clarity within yourself and let go of the need for external validation. Once you realize explaining doesn't make you more loved, but wears you down, you'll start pulling back your energy. You'll choose silence over proving yourself. You'll learn to hold space for yourself, letting your actions and consistency speak. The strongest people aren't the ones with the best words, but those steady enough to stand in their worth without saying a thing. This isn't easy, especially if you grew up in a world where love came with conditions, where you had to please to be loved. But trust me, freedom lies on the other side of not needing to be understood. When you no longer need validation to feel worthy, you won't explain to the undeserving. You'll be free, not because they understand you, but because you're no longer bound by that need. Look back at recent moments where you felt drained. Were you explaining something to someone you knew wouldn't understand? Did you feel let down for not being heard? Did you feel depleted from trying to prove something? If so, it's time to ask, am I seeking understanding or begging for approval? That question can wake you up. Sometimes answering it honestly shows you don't need to say anything more. Starting today, try this. When you're misunderstood, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, do I need to say this to protect my worth? Or am I reacting out of feeling threatened? If you're seeking approval, give yourself permission to step back. You don't need to explain to exist. You're worthy even if others don't see it. You deserve love without justifying your feelings. True strength comes from peace. Peace comes from knowing who you are, where you stand, and not needing others to see it. When you can hold that in silence, without defending or convincing, you're living in true power. Power doesn't come from convincing others to agree with you. It comes from standing alone, unshaken, no matter how loud the noise around you. If this hits home, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you fallen into the trap of over-explaining? Ever felt drained from proving yourself? Tell the community your story could light the way for others. Hit like if this was helpful, and subscribe to join us on this journey of building inner strength and healing emotionally. We don't need approval. We're learning to approve of ourselves first. Number 7, the Stoic art of being misunderstood. There's a quality emotionally mature people must learn, like it or not, the willingness to be misunderstood. Not because you can't explain, but because you know not everyone is nuanced enough to understand you, nor do they deserve your clarity. This is the Stoic art of living, staying silent, steady, and calm when misunderstood, because true value doesn't need validation. Being misunderstood is inevitable, especially when you set boundaries, live authentically, or leave toxic relationships. You get labeled as cold, selfish, overly rational, or unfeeling. They don't misunderstand you because you're wrong, but because you no longer act in ways that make them comfortable. Instead of adjusting to you, they distort you. That's a common reaction from those who once benefited from your weakness or predictability. Stoics don't try to control how others think. They know others' thoughts are beyond their control. You can live kindly, responsibly, and honestly, yet still be misunderstood. You can speak with absolute sincerity and still be twisted into criticism or opposition. You can spend hours explaining and still not be believed simply because they don't want to. A mature person knows some things must be let go, and the need to be understood is one of them. Why? Because being obsessed with being understood makes you vulnerable to the slightest distortions. You become defensive, doubtful, overanalyzing. Most importantly, you lose inner freedom. Someone fixated on clarifying everything never feels free. They live like they're on trial, both defendant and lawyer. True peace comes when you can face misunderstanding without the urge to correct it. You can see others mislabel you but smile inwardly, knowing, I'm the only one who needs to understand me. The rest is just noise. This is the Stoic art, valuing your inner truth over external perceptions. Stoicism emphasizes the difference between what you can and cannot control, and what others think of you is always beyond your control. It hurts to be misunderstood, especially by those you love. But as you grow, you see it's necessary. It forces you inward, asking, what are my values? Am I doing this for validation or because it's true to me? Those questions shape you, deepen you, and free you from the petty game of pleasing others. Ironically, when you stop reacting to being misunderstood, others lose their power to manipulate you. You're no longer a puppet pulled by external emotions. You hold the strings, not to control others, but yourself. That's true power, not loud or showy, but quiet, profound, and commanding respect because you're ungraspable. The more you try to prove yourself, the more you show you're swayable. Stoics don't aim to be liked because living by principles often makes you unpopular. Speaking truth, setting boundaries, and refusing old rules make you a target for misunderstanding. But the strong don't reject this. They embrace it as part of true freedom. Silence in the face of misunderstanding isn't weakness. It's proof of maturity. It says, I don't need to speak to know who I am. It's a shield against others' emotional spirals. When you stop trying to fix your image in the eyes of those who won't see, you grant yourself the right to live authentically without permission. And here's the truth. The right people won't need endless explanations. They'll see you in the small things, how you live, love, and hold your values through storms. They'll understand you with their hearts, not words. Those who don't or won't understand, your lifetime of proof won't change them. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand and believe in yourself. That's the root of peace. Once you're free from external expectations, you'll feel a strange lightness. No more sleepless nights over being misjudged. No more pointless arguments to reclaim honor. Just you, clear, calm, and free. If this resonates, like the video to support the channel. Share a moment you chose silence over arguing, or let go of explaining yourself in the comments. We're here to learn from each other, to remind ourselves that being misunderstood isn't always a tragedy. Sometimes it's a sign you're on the right path. Subscribe if you haven't to catch the next videos on building inner strength, staying steady amidst toxicity, and living a life of fewer explanations, but more value. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say nothing at all. Number 8, your peace is more important than being right. There's a truth few want to admit. Many arguments, stresses, and anger in life stem from a hidden need to be proven right. We think we're defending the truth or fighting for justice, but sometimes we're just protecting an ego, afraid of losing. That's why peace is so rare. A truly wise person chooses peace over being right, not because they lack arguments, but because they know that being right at the cost of energy and inner calm is worthless. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew you were right, had evidence, logic, and reason, but explaining only led to more defensiveness, twisting of your words, and exhaustion? That feeling is proof. Being right isn't always worth pursuing. Some battles aren't worth starting. Some conversations have predetermined outcomes, not by reason, but by the other person's ego. Toxic people use your need to be right to manipulate you. They drag you into endless arguments, making you explain, prove, and defend while they toss emotional bait to unravel you. They don't want truth. They want emotional control. If you fall into the trap of needing to be right, you're on the defensive, losing control, and most importantly, your peace. Those who know themselves don't need to prove it through arguments. They choose silence not because they lose, but because they know winning isn't necessary. They know their peace isn't in anyone else's hands, and protecting it is more valuable than external validation. When you let go of needing to be right, you feel a strange freedom. You're no longer a puppet pulled by lies or the need to restore your honor in others' eyes. You stand firm, even when denied. A clear sign of maturity is smiling at misunderstandings and walking away in peace. No reaction, no argument, no twisting words to win an emotional battle. Such a person isn't weak. They're stronger than you think. They know peace doesn't come from winning, but from choosing to stop at the right moment. Sometimes the real victory is not entering the fight at all. You'll be surprised to find that when you stay silent, toxic people reveal themselves. Without you to attack or manipulate, they lose direction. Meanwhile, you keep your energy and faith in yourself. That's profound wisdom, choosing peace over being right in the eyes of someone who'll never acknowledge you. Living this way builds better relationships. You're no longer drawn to those who argue, deny, or manipulate emotions. You seek those who stay calm in disagreements, who listen without turning differences into attacks. Most importantly, you stop fearing being misunderstood. You know your peace doesn't depend on others' views, but on not needing to correct every misconception. It's not easy to let go of needing to be right. The ego craves validation, justice, and victory. But ask yourself, how many times have you won an argument but felt empty? Lost respect, peace, or relationships that could have been saved with a nod and timely release? Some truths don't need words, just living them. Some defenses don't need to be spoken, just shown through action. Practicing this doesn't mean letting others walk over you. You still hold clear boundaries, know what's wrong, toxic or unacceptable, but you respond without breaking your inner calm. You choose to walk away over arguing, silence over rage, maturity over instinct. Peace isn't avoidance. It's the strongest state of your inner self, where you know your worth, what deserves your energy, and won't let anyone pull you from it just to win a pointless argument. If you've fallen into the trap of needing to be right, you're not alone. We've all been there. But the difference comes next time. Pause, take a deep breath, and ask, is my peace at stake just to win this? If the answer is yes, you know what to do. Choose peace. You don't need to win. You just need to be free from negativity. If you're learning to let go of being right for inner peace, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a time you chose silence over arguing or walked away instead of debating. Your stories can inspire others on this path. Like the video if it resonates, and subscribe with notifications to catch new videos on emotional intelligence, healthy boundaries, and staying peaceful in a chaotic world. Remember, being right isn't always what matters, but peace is always worth protecting. Number 9, detach. Don't debate. Some arguments don't need to be won because you shouldn't have entered them in the first place. This isn't weakness or avoidance. It's the deep realization that some people, relationships, and situations aren't worth a second of your energy. Detaching doesn't mean you don't care. It means you refuse to destroy yourself to maintain a toxic connection. Debating, however, is how toxic people pull you into their psychological game, where they don't care about the truth, only your reaction. As long as you react, they have power. Toxic people want you in their arena. They provoke, exaggerate, distort, and if you argue back, they pivot, blame, or hit your emotional weak spots. It makes you feel you must explain, fix, clarify, but no explanation will satisfy someone with no goodwill. That's when you need to wake up. You don't need to convince them. You need to leave the ring. When you detach, you reclaim emotional control. You're no longer a pawn moved by their words or attitude. You see who's trying to manipulate you with fake arguments. You learn silence is strength and not engaging is freedom. Detaching isn't about hate, it's about clarity. You don't need to be right, you need to stay whole. Those hurt by toxic arguments often feel compelled to speak up, defend their honor, or set the truth straight. But if you're constantly defending yourself to someone, the relationship is broken at its core. No one deserves your peace just to keep the peace. Peace takes mutual respect. If they only want to win while you try to be kind, you'll always end up drained. Detaching doesn't always mean physically leaving. You might share a home, workplace, or family tie, but you can detach emotionally. Their emotions no longer dictate your day. Their attitude doesn't pull you into unease. You can be polite, kind, but unattached. You smile at emotional bait, stay silent during attacks, and refuse to fix them. One of the strongest emotional survival skills is walking away from games you don't need to play. This isn't avoidance. It's a conscious choice. You know arguing drains your energy, peace, and clarity. Don't let anyone force you to answer questions designed to trap you. You owe no one answers, especially when they're asked with bad faith to pull you into an emotional maze. Emotionally mature people aren't those with the right answers, but those who know when to stay silent. They know peace sometimes comes from not reacting, not emphasizing, not arguing, not justifying. That calm makes them unmanipulable. When you don't react as expected, they lose control. When you withdraw energy from the fight, they see your emotional power, and they have no choice but to back off. Understand this. No one is worth breaking your inner peace. No one deserves your mental health just to prove you're good. If they don't see it in your actions, no words will change them. Clinging to the need to clarify or convince makes you their emotional prisoner. Imagine the freedom of saying, I don't need to explain anything. You're not cold or heartless. You've just grown to know not everyone deserves your energy. Detaching isn't cruel, it's clear. Clear about boundaries, clear about your worth, clear that you can choose peace over winning. Detaching is an act of self-love. You don't judge, you simply stop expecting. You don't expect them to understand, apologize, change, or validate you. You give that to yourself so you don't need them to be anything for you to feel at peace. If you've ever felt guilty for not saying more, remember sometimes saying nothing is the loudest response. Toxic people can't manipulate you if you don't play their game. This wise detachment preserves your dignity, peace, and freedom from unnecessary battles. If you're learning to detach from toxic people or situations, share your journey in the comments, like the video if it's made you stronger. and subscribe to join us in healing, growing, and building a resilient inner life. We don't need to win every argument, but we need to win ourselves by staying whole. Sometimes detaching is the greatest victory. In the end, it's not about silencing others with your response, but living so your inner peace isn't swayed by external noise. When you stop explaining, arguing, and seeking validation from those who don't deserve it, you're not just saving energy, you're setting a new standard for self-respect. Silence doesn't mean you lose, it means you've won a silent battle, the one against your instinct to be understood, validated, or defended. That's the hardest but most glorious victory. Remember, you don't need to justify your worth. You don't need to prove the rightness of your choices, journey, or emotions to those who don't care about the truth. The quieter you stay within, the clearer your true voice becomes. That voice guides you through pain, false expectations, and toxic relationships that once made you doubt yourself. It's time to decide, do you want to keep reporting your life to others, or do you want to be the strongest, calmest, most resilient version of yourself? Don't let others' words define your worth. Let your calm be the final response to every attack, judgment, and misunderstanding. If this video touched something deep within you, share a moment in the comments when you chose to stop explaining and embrace peace. Like the video to help it reach others who need this wake-up call. Subscribe if you want to join this journey of building inner strength, healing old wounds, and becoming stronger every day. We don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes the right silence says the most powerful things. In a chaotic world, those who master silence are the ones who truly own the game.